I received a phone call from my granddaughter Allison some years ago, who wanted help with a presentation she was to give on freedom and liberty and what they meant to her. She was inquiring after my feelings concerning this important subject. I pondered what I said to her and felt that it was important that I respond beyond the brief remarks that I gave her. I believe it was in July 1977, as the family transferred to Pensacola from Iceland, when my daughter Kirsten and I visited the National Archives in Washington, D.C., and saw the original Declaration of Independence under its security glass. Later in my travels, it would also be my privilege to visit Independence Hall in Philadelphia, where our founding fathers signed our Declaration of Independence. I cannot begin to relate to you the deep and emotional feelings that were engendered in my heart as I stood in front of that document, and later in front of the table where 56 men, our founding fathers, signed their names and pledged their lives, their fortune, and their sacred honor to the ideal that has become America, an ideal which Holy Writ bears record was born of God. It was just an hour after visiting the hall that I visited the Liberty Bell inscribed with those words from Leviticus 25:10, "Proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof." Webster defines a patriot as one who loves his country and supports its authority and interests. Truly, each of us who have served in uniform are patriots, and I might add that I believe that this would extend to our wives and families, those of the silent ranks. We have chosen to support and defend the symbol of our nation. We know this symbol by many names: the flag, the colors, the ensign. But the one I prefer is the title of liberty. It was approximately 2,100 years ago when a young man of 25 was made general of the vast army which was raised up to preserve the liberty of this land. And as he rode throughout the country to consolidate his forces, the record indicates that he rent his coat and he took a piece thereof and wrote upon it, "In memory of our God, our religion, and our freedom, and our peace, our wives, and our children." And he fastened it upon the end of a pole, and he called it the title of liberty. Similarly, the Pilgrim Fathers who arrived here in the 17th century raised different banners, but all to the same end, that they might have liberty to worship God as they please. So these banners were also titles of liberty. On July 4th, 2021, this nation celebrated its 245th birthday, a time when we, the people, remembered that our founding fathers raised the new title of liberty, our stars and stripes, Old Glory, and proclaimed their freedom from the tyranny of King George III and the English Parliament. Our family has a long tradition of devotion to God, family, and country. The legacy of freedom within our twigs, branches, and roots begins during our struggle to become a free nation in the Revolutionary War. It was during this time of our nation's history that 3 of my 5th great-grandfathers enlisted in the Continental Army. One of these was Adam Lauer, who enlisted as a private in the German regiment and served with Captain William Poyser's company. His headstone reads, "A soldier in General Washington's army, and spent the cold and weary winter at Valley Forge." Ponder in your minds this scene. See him and many others standing barefoot in the snow of Valley Forge, with muskets in their hands, starved from the lack of food, emotionally scarred and lonely from an eternity away from family, and surrounded by nothing but the death and the carnage of war. They stand there with fire in their eyes and victory in their hearts. They look at us down through the years of time in anger and disgust and tell us, "We gave you a birthright of freedom, born in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and now your children graduate too illiterate to read it. We fought in the snow, barefoot, to give you the freedom to vote, and you stay at home because it rains. We left our families destitute to give you freedom of speech, and you remain silent on critical issues because it might be bad for business. We orphaned our children to give you a constitutional republic, to serve you, and you have allowed egocentric, self-serving politicians to steal it through the guise of democracy. Then there was the awful crucible of civil war, when father fought against son and brother against brother, when our nation could have been torn apart. But we came out of that time better and stronger. In my travels, I have also been to Gettysburg, where in July 1863, this little quiet village in Pennsylvania was racked by the horrible carnage of war. The quiet over the farmland was replaced by a din of cannon, mortar, and a legion of rifle fire. Good men on both sides gave their lives because they were asked by their country. 4½ months after the Battle of Gettysburg, on November 19, 1863, on this hallowed ground, President Lincoln spoke at the dedication of a portion of the battlefield as the Gettysburg National Cemetery. This was to be the final resting place for those who died there. These remarks have come to be known as the Gettysburg Address. In it, he spoke of those who gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Then in the war to end all wars, World War I, many fought to put down those who would destroy freedom and liberty in the world. But still, our flag, the symbol of freedom and liberty, continues to fly around the world. And one of those heroes who fought, listen carefully to the words of John McCrae's poem, In Flanders Fields. In Flanders fields the poppies grow, between the crosses row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead, short days ago, we lived, felt dawn, saw sunsets glow, loved and were left, and now we lie in Flanders field. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw the torch, be yours to hold it high. If you break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields. Have we the people caught the torch thrown to us? Do we the people individually and as a nation continue to hold it high as a beacon of hope to those who seek freedom and liberty? Fast forward with me now to December 7th, 1941, a day that will live in infamy, when we lost thousands at Pearl Harbor. Once more, Americans, red and yellow, black and white, had to answer the call to defend our freedom and liberty. Once more, Americans of all colors were called upon to shed their blood for our stars and stripes. These heroes and our flag went where they were sent. They went so that you and I might continue to enjoy freedom and liberty. Many of these would also answer the call to serve in Korea. I am reminded of the first time I felt pride in our nation and our flag. I was but a lad watching a television Christmas special in the early 50s. Kate Smith was entertaining the soldiers in Korea. They had made a large Uncle Sam's hat and hung a huge flag behind it. She was on top of the hat singing. It was then that I first heard, God Bless America. I shall never forget the feelings that were engendered in me that night. Then in the years that followed in Duncansville, Pennsylvania, as I attended the elementary school, I remember marching in the annual Memorial Day parade, carrying a flag, as did all the other children of the school, little ones for the primary grades, and larger ones for the older ones. Afterwards, we went with the veterans to honor those of their number buried in Carson Valley Cemetery. Honors were rendered to the oldest veteran lying there, and then to the veteran most recently laid to rest there. 100 years after Gettysburg, in 1965, and halfway around the world in Vietnam, the quiet over the countryside was again racked by the horrible carnage of war. This time the quiet was shattered by bombs, napalm, machine gun, and rifle fire, and good men on both sides gave their lives because they were asked by their country. You may wonder why I have linked these two battles, fought 100 years apart. I believe that there is a connection that I did not realize until I saw ABC's Day One on the Battle of the La Drang Valley. I believe that there may be healing in the connection for my comrades and for myself. More than 5 decades have passed since the beginning of the Vietnam War. The first major battle for our heroes in Vietnam was in the La Drang Valley in November 1965. In that battle, our nation's losses numbered over 300 men killed or wounded. As I watched the story unfold on TV, the old feeling returned, the feeling that I have unsuccessfully tried to repress for more than 50 years, the feeling that always comes to the surface when I see the wall or hear attacks. I will probably continue my struggle for years to come because I am a member of the Vietnam class of 1969, a member of the Brotherhood of War. My struggle is because I cannot shake the feeling that these men died in vain because they failed to preserve the freedom and liberty of a people who are now bound by the chains of communism. In November 1982, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial was dedicated in Washington, D.C. To many of us, the wall has brought healing as we have reached out to our brothers in spirit who have gone ahead in this journey we call life, a reaching to reassure them that they are not forgotten by us who served with them, a reaching that says we, the Vietnam vets, will never let others forget them either. I have struggled with the wall and what it represents for some time. As I have looked at and considered the names on the wall, I have looked for the answer to their struggle and the price they paid. I have looked in vain, but that night I learned that I was looking in the wrong place. I learned that I could not look outward at their loss and the loss of the war, but that I must look instead inward to the gallant spirit of all of us who served. They did not die in vain. I repeat, they did not die in vain. They gave their lives in defense of their comrades. Many of us who returned are here only because of the sacrifice of one whose name is upon the wall. It is only through us, the living Vietnam veterans, that their deaths can have purpose. They fought for the freedom and liberty of their brothers. They gave their lives that we, their brothers, and you might retain our freedom and liberty. Such devotion and sacrifice is never in vain, for the Savior of all men has said, "Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends." Fast forward again, as a second time, here in our own good land, on September 11th, 2001, we the people witnessed the towers come down, and the loss of thousands. Have you forgotten how it felt as you witnessed the innocents and the heroes give their very lives on 3 21st century battlefields? I pray that we the people never forget the towers in New York City, Flight 93 in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and the Pentagon, which brought the war on terror from the attacks on our military and embassies overseas to our own shores. Throughout our history, there have always been patriots among us, men and women who were willing to serve, men and women in uniform, and families who served silently while they waited. Always our flag, our title of liberty, has fluttered above them in the breeze, and observed their patriotism just as it observes ours today. I have often wondered if it, our title of liberty, could talk, how we would measure up. If we, the people, are continuing to pass on to our posterity the love of liberty and patriotism our ancestors passed on to us. I am grateful for our heritage of service throughout the world in preserving the freedom and liberty. I am grateful that I was able to serve 25 years in defense of freedom and liberty. I hope that I have been true to the trust of liberty. I hope that I have instilled in my daughters a love for liberty and a desire to preserve it. I hope that they have, and I have, done the same for my grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and not only for my posterity alone, but for all the rising generations of Americans. What a great heritage we the people have from those who have gone before and those who are currently serving. But we the people must never forget that we have earned this by their constant vigilance. Millions of people all around the world would like to have what they gave us. And if we ever lose our freedom, you will know why. Freedom and liberty are so very precious that many have died that we might enjoy them. In many places around the world they sleep, and to us they have passed the standard of freedom and liberty. To us they have entrusted the ideal that is America. Will you reverence and respect this ideal as they did? Or does it no longer matter? May each of us continue to raise the title of liberty, the flag of this great nation. May each of us use it as a symbol of freedom and liberty. And may it always serve as a constant reminder that freedom and liberty are very fragile and may be lost without constant vigilance. Then may each of us grant to our title of liberty the reverence and respect that is spoken of throughout our heritage. If we do this, I promise that our title of liberty will continue to wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. It is the soldier, not the reporter, who gives you the freedom of the press. It is the soldier, not the poet, who gives you the freedom of speech. It is the soldier, not the campus organizer, who allows you to demonstrate. It is the soldier who salutes the flag, serves the flag, whose coffin is draped with the flag, that allows the protester to burn the flag. It is the year of our Lord 2021, and of the United States of America 245. May God bless each of you and your families, and may God bless and save the United States of America, our constitutional republic.